All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. I'm here really excited to be a part of the Tenbound conference. It's been a couple years since I've been able to join this group, but impressive to see the community that everyone has created and been a part of. And so excited to be here today and talk through definitely a topic that is near and dear to me, which is around promoting SDRs to frontline managers and then beyond from there. So we're going to spend some time today talking about what it looks like going from being an SDR to a go-to-market leader, and why at least I feel so passionate about the fact that it can actually work in the sales development organization. Cool. So quick agenda and what to expect in the next, let's call it 20 minutes. I'll give you an intro of who I am, why I think I'm a little qualified to talk about this, why I'm bullish on this, all of that. And then just a couple prompts as far as like why promoting SDRs to manager works, how to create a career path and path to success for your people. And then some examples, actually most recently that I've been able to do within my organization that I will share what's worked and hopefully a little bit of what hasn't, so you all can learn from that as well. So about me, again, my name is Ashley Kelly. I am the VP of Sales Development at Rippling. I lead the entire function, which is both inbound, outbound channel. We have a team in India. It is quite the machine over here. I'm very, very lucky to be a part of it. I actually have been in the SDR space now for almost a decade at a bunch of really cool tech companies throughout the Bay Area. So most recently before this, I was at Brex, spent almost 4 years there building the entire outbound program from scratch. But really, I actually started my career as an SDR at Zenefits. And so that's really where I fell in love with this side of the funnel. And I get asked all the time, why don't I lead a closing team? And these two reasons are exactly why, and a lot of what I'll continue to allude to throughout our conversation today. But when I think about sales development, I think about it in two ways. One being pipeline. So predictable revenue is still one of my favorite books. I love being able to make an impact on the business through slicing data in all different ways. The biggest thing for me though, and again, I will touch on this throughout this topic, is around the people. So I have been really lucky over the years. I've been able to hire over 500 SDRs at all different companies, and have promoted I think over 200 of them to account executive, to customer success, some going different paths. But the one, that I think I always get excited about is the manager one. So when people decide to say that they want to stay in the SDR organization, I get really excited because I obviously did that myself. So I was at Zenefits I started as an SDR, left there as a director. There was tons of learnings that I had. And so hopefully you all are able to take some of that away to either help yourself in where you want to go in your career, or some of your people that might be interested as well. Cool. So why promoting SDRs to manager works? I think about it in a few different ways: people, process, and technologies. When I think about it from the people aspect of it, one of the hardest things for us to do as leaders and to get right is to hire top talent. I definitely think one of the least riskier things you can do as a leader is to promote from within, especially when you're trying to preserve culture, and especially at startups these days. So I think culture definitely has a broad definition. When I think about it, I do think about it from a business perspective. So like I said, I've worked at some really fast-paced companies over the years. Rippling by far takes the cake. And so I think, we move faster than I've ever seen. We execute with a higher sense of urgency. And frankly, that environment is not for everyone. And so there is that risk of when you're hiring an external manager, really making sure, do they know what they're signing up for? And the beauty of when you're promoting from within with an SDR is you've already seen them succeed in the role. You've already, identified that they can execute under that type of high pressure. And now, your confidence level is much higher when moving them into a more strategic role. And so I think first and foremost, that's what I think about when I think about culture and the business expectations of when you're hiring a manager, and just love the fact that, you get to see kind of a glimpse of what that manager could be when they're an SDR. The next thing is around process. So specifically at Rippling, our org handles about 5,000 MQLs a month. So high volume, super transactional. And you can imagine in that type of an environment, our systems and our infrastructures have to be set up the right way in order for that machine not to break, making sure our SLAs are hit and conversion rates are there. So you'd be surprised to see how complicated that is. And so I've actually only been at the company for 8 months. And so for me coming over, it was like, wow, there's a lot to learn. And so when you're trying to learn the product and you're trying to learn, all the different teams that are associated, but like most importantly, like as your role as a manager is knowing the business, knowing exactly where the leads are coming from that your reps are working. And so I think, if you can have an SDR that is successful and already knows how to do those things at a smaller scale, it makes it that much easier to ramp them into a manager. And then they can see kind of like the broader picture. And the same kind of thing goes to the tech stack as well. I mean, I think, if you've been a leader in the space for a while, you've likely gotten your hands on different ones. But if you've gotten your hands on it as a rep, doing the process, pitching the product, then you're going to, ultimately have more success. And I think for a leader like myself, it really comes down to trust. I would much rather teach someone how to be a first-time people manager and how to have hard conversations and how to run one-on-ones and more of like the art of management than I would actually like the science and the process behind it. And really I think it helps with the ramp time and just overall productivity of the business. And so those are just a handful of things of why I think promoting SDRs to manager works. What I will say though, is I think it's super important when you think about the how is that you're clearly defining a career path to success. And so we've actually started this initiative at Rippling, which is called SDR to CRO. So it's really how does an IC grow across the business, whether that is to SDR management or to leadership, on different closing teams. And really like this growth path is actually outside of the direct sales org as well. We have paths where SDRs can actually go to account management, into where else, implementation, and a couple other places across the business as well. And so I think defining that first and foremost is really important. Understanding really what motivates someone, because I think there is such a difference between the motivations and incentives that someone has that wants to go into management versus someone that wants to, rise the ranks as an IC. And really there's, nothing wrong with either of those, but just making sure that you know them and that you're able to support your people in doing that. Because I think it's also important that management is not for everyone. And so I think there are times where you have to have those tough conversations. But on the flip side, there's a lot of times as a leader, I've seen, a top performer that I'm like, wow, that person would be a phenomenal leader one day. I wonder if they've even thought about this. I wonder if they even know that this is a possibility for them in their career. Because I think, traditionally SDRs are brought in at more of a junior level. And so they probably aren't even thinking about managing people quite yet. So I think, having those upfront conversations with your reps in one-on-ones, understanding what that looks like. I know for me personally, I knew I wanted to be in leadership because I I liked more the internal operational stuff. And so how can I make something, hum more efficiently versus talking to customers? I also liked caring more about the team number and how do we hit this for the business and how do we look at the data and slice it and make sure that we're able to squeeze as much out of these leads and opportunities as we can versus owning just one number to myself. The stress is there on both sides, don't get me wrong, but I preferred the stress on one side versus the other. And so I think when you start really having those frank conversations with people, you start to understand that. And then tactically, I would say some things that we've implemented is a mentor program. These are pretty standard across the board, but I think if you really dial them in and get them right, they can actually make everyone's lives easier on the team, not only new hires that are starting, but as you see people that are, wanting to be a manager, they're in that more senior SDR role, assigning them a sidekick and having them be, just as much tied to the ramp time as the manager is. And so there's a whole new sense of ownership that happens there. And then, taking kind of a step back in this remote world, it's even harder to transfer knowledge. And so having that built in, I think is a blessing, and I'm thankful to everyone that does it. But I've gotten so much feedback. On the next slide, I'll talk through some of the examples of reps that we've promoted recently, but really like that was their shining moment when they're like, yes, this is how I knew I wanted to be a manager, was because I enjoyed so much of helping new hires and helping people, ramp in their role. And if you don't give them an opportunity to do the role before getting promoted, or at least some aspects of it, that's when it can become risky. And so I think that's like a sidekick mentor program is like a super easy way of implementing that. And so that brings me over to examples of success. So we're really lucky. We have a massive SDR team. They absolutely crush it. I'm so proud of them. But I think a lot of that is the buy-in as far as, where they see themselves growing within their roles here at Rippling. And I think if you don't give your people those paths or light at the end of the tunnel, you're gonna miss out on great talent. And looking across the board over the years, my top AEs, top leaders, top, anyone that continues to progress within the sales organization usually starts as an SDR. And so I think making sure that, like I said a little bit ago, is that they even know that option exists. And so I'm, delighted to say that we were able to create SDR leadership paths within our organization. So of the 19 managers that I have today, 10 have actually been promoted from the SDR role into a leadership role. And so if I actually work backwards on this slide, you can see these are just the most recent within the last couple of months. There's way more if you looked at the bigger org, but want to highlight them because they were like super top of mind when I started thinking about how to just even have this conversation with people, is like, what do you need to do in order to become a manager and be eligible as an SDR? And so I think there's, kind of similar to the AE route, like there's time that you should be in the seat, but first and foremost, it should come down to performance and execution. I also think there's some things that are a little more intangible. So like you can look at someone crushing quota. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the best AE or the best manager. But what it comes down to is almost that gut feeling of it's a no-brainer. So like when I was, had a few openings on the inbound team and for management, and I had already had some conversations with Alex, Melissa, and Victoria, that's where they wanted to go in their career. For me, it was like, it's a no-brainer. Like, they're great at what they do. They do crush quota. They're very self-aware with a business lens. And so like an example of that with Alex is he was working some of our special projects cross-sell leads, but wanted to be an inbound manager. And so the conversation was like, hey, like I want to get you there for sure, but we need you to actually do the inbound role again for about a month, and then we'll move you into management. Because what I said back to a couple slides ago is like the systems and the process can change and be really complicated. And in order to feel really confident in the fact that someone's going to manage to that and like be a side-by-side coach with the reps, they have to be able to prove and do that and making it a no-brainer. And so like even just him being super self-aware of like that was what the business needed at the time was awesome. And he's absolutely crushing it. All three of them had been in a company for about a year. So probably a little bit sooner than like traditional what I would promote, but given our volume transactions and just growth in general, felt really confident with that. And so part of what we did there is now there are a good amount of frontline managers. And so we decided to promote John into a senior manager role, who owns all of our inbound web leads. And I mean, he's been at Rippling since 2019. He's started as an SDR. And so just in that short time has moved up that much of a progression. And same thing with Nicole, who we've now moved into a director role after having been hired as a senior manager in 2021. So these things, they exist, like you can build them. I think it means so much to your people when you actually invest in the opportunity for them to grow within their career. And I think, the SDR function is just very different than the even the sales side. I don't think it requires years and years of closing and years of management experience to get into some of these titles. I think if you have some faith in your people, faith in yourself and your processes that you've set up, then you can make it happen. But like ultimately at the end of the day, I think it comes down to understanding what motivates your people, creating that right process. I've seen this be successful at every company I've worked at. I know I spent a lot of time talking about Rippling specifically, just because this has been so top of mind with all the hiring and movement that we've done on the team. But some of my best leaders throughout the years, Maddie Corbett, just tons of them started as SDRs, and now they're leading functions at all different companies. And so needless to say, we all know that SDR is like tip of the spear, super impactful to businesses. Aside from the pipeline generating, we have to make sure we double down on the people and career pathing that we do. And so again, I'm super bullish on SDRs moving into management. I did it myself, and I'm going to keep promoting people from within. So thanks for listening in. Hopefully this was helpful. If not, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. We can talk further. Happy to answer any sort of questions, but enjoy the rest of the sessions today. I know there are some amazing speakers. So have a great rest of y'all's day.